Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you didn't see the moment they turned your life into a well-planned exit strategy? That night, I was stationed at a military base overseas, halfway through a 6-month deployment with the Cavalry Division. The mission was calm, the team focused, and everything felt routine, until my phone buzzed with a single text message that ended 16 years of marriage in one breathless moment. I've met someone else. Don't come back. Your things are in storage. Attached was a screenshot. $132,000 had vanished from our joint savings, rerouted into her personal account while I was sleeping on a foreign cot under a foreign sky, defending values we once claimed to share. I sat silently in my small quarters, my coffee still warm beside me, and stared at the screen, not out of shock, but recognition. This wasn't impulsive. It was calculated. My wife, Ashley, had been planning this. She knew my schedule, my vulnerability, and my code of loyalty. She also had no idea what I'd spent years quietly preparing for. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and whispered the same 3 words I would have said on any battlefield. It's go time. My name is Major Daniel Reece, Cavalry Division United, States Army. I've spent more than 2 decades analyzing hostile terrain, reading the enemy, and coordinating responses under pressure. I've survived insurgent ambushes in Kandahar, heatstroke in Mali, and the slow, soul-deep fatigue that comes from watching good men fall. But nothing prepared me for the battlefield that waited behind my own front door. I met Ashley during a charity fundraiser in Austin, Texas. I had just returned from a 6-month NATO advisory mission and was convinced by a fellow officer to make a rare appearance in civilian clothes. She was luminous, long red hair, disarming confidence, and a quick laugh that seemed to cut through the noise. She was an entrepreneur, launching her own line of wellness retreats and supplements. We couldn't have been more different, but the contrast worked, at least in the beginning. We married within the year. I used my savings and re-enlistment bonus to help her secure the lease on her first yoga and wellness studio. She handled the branding, the influencers, the glossy lifestyle, while I handled deployment rotations, late-night calls from Intel Command, and re-upped my commitment to the Army every time my sense of purpose outpaced the weariness. She didn't understand my work, and honestly, she never pretended to. As long as you're safe and we're covered financially, I don't need to know the details, she'd say, her tone breezy, almost too practiced. I told myself she was being supportive. Looking back, it was strategic detachment. As years passed, the signs emerged like static beneath a clear transmission. Her solo retreats to Sedona and Tulum became more frequent. Her phone was always face down on the table. She began answering messages with a practiced smile, her tone shifting when I walked into the room. Our conversations became transactional. Updates on bills, schedules, her studio expansion. We stopped laughing. We stopped touching. We stopped looking forward to anything together. And still, I said nothing. Because the battlefield had taught me this. Not every threat announces itself with a bang. Some arrive slowly, quietly, hiding behind familiarity. 3 years before the message that detonated our marriage, I sat with my father on the back porch of our family ranch in Colorado. He was a retired Marine, tough as old rope, and had learned to keep his wisdom in short, sharp sentences. She's got ambition, he said as we watched Ashley scroll on her phone while we grilled steaks. But just make sure she respects where the money comes from. Respect matters more than love in the long haul. I brushed it off. But I heard it. That same year I began restructuring. Not out of paranoia, but caution. Learned from countless military operations where fallback plans saved lives. I converted part of my pension into private investments, opened LLCs in Montana and Wyoming under old military nicknames. I placed my military benefits and insurance into trusts, only accessible through biometric authentication. All above board, all legal, all mine. Ashley knew about our joint checking and savings. She had access to the home equity line, my base salary, the studio profits we reported jointly. But she never asked about the other accounts. She assumed that because I was stoic and silent, I was simple. That was her first mistake. The second? Thinking I didn't see what was happening, there were long phone calls in the hallway with the door half closed, conference trips with vague agendas, cryptic Instagram captions about finding your alignment and outgrowing your old self. Then there was the Christmas she forgot my birthday. When I reminded her the next day, she smiled and said she'd make it up to me with something special, and handed me a luxury smartwatch, still in the shipping box. No card, no thought, no time spent. That night, while she slept beside me, I finalized a document folder I'd been building for months. It was labeled Operation Homefront. Contained within, account logs, financial authorizations, video recordings of our home office when I was away, even a notarized affidavit of financial intent signed the year we married. Call it overkill. I called it military instinct. The truth is I loved her. In the same way soldiers love their gear, because it's been with you in fire through storms and during long silent nights in enemy territory. But just like gear, sometimes it fails. And when it fails, you don't cling to it, you adapt, you survive. I'd spent years serving my country, but I had overlooked the need to serve myself, to defend my future against the kind of betrayal that doesn't carry a rifle, but walks beside you, sleeps in your bed, and quietly rewrites your story while you're away doing something noble. So when the message came, when she said not to come home, I didn't rage. I didn't beg. I didn't even blink because I had already built my defense, and she had just given me the perfect reason to activate it. The morning after Ashley's message, the desert sun hadn't even crested the hills when I brewed my first cup of black coffee and sat alone in the tactical comms room of our outpost. The air was still, the kind of stillness you get right before a sandstorm or a siege. But I wasn't rattled. I was clear. I opened the hardened laptop I traveled with, issued for encrypted field operations but adapted for personal contingency use. Within seconds, I activated Protocol Hawk Echo, a self-designed sequence built over years, part legal firewall, part financial kill switch. I'd always believed war prepared men for every type of attack, but betrayal at home is a different kind of warfare. It's not about strength, it's about precision. The first step was freezing the joint accounts. Using military-grade secure access codes connected to my banking dashboard, I cut off every card, account, and credit line linked to our shared financial identity. The transfer she made would be flagged as potentially fraudulent, not because of what she did, but because of how I'd positioned those funds months ago. My network flagged sudden movement of over $100,000 as a breach of a preset threshold. Next, I flagged my military pension account. A friend in the Veterans Affairs Internal Compliance Office owed me a favor from a deployment in Kabul. Within 15 minutes, Ashley's access to any VA-related benefits was locked down and under review. If she tried to pull any tricks there, she'd hit a digital wall. Then I moved to the legal front. I opened an encrypted folder marked Sentinel Briefing Homefront, which contained everything from scanned marriage agreements and power of attorney documents to photos of Ashley's questionable retreats and wire transfers to third-party accounts she hadn't disclosed. Every piece had metadata, timestamps, and geolocation logs. I didn't just plan for this moment. I documented it like a battlefield intel officer. And now, I handed that arsenal to my attorney back in Texas with a single line in the message. Activate defense, no delay. But perhaps the most surgical move was my call to Mike Ramirez. Mike had been with me in Kandahar. Brilliant at code, paranoid in the best way, and now running his own cybersecurity firm. We hadn't worked together in years, but he answered on the first ring. She hit, I told him. Need a digital scan. On all known assets. You want full spectrum? Everything. Mike didn't ask why. He'd seen enough operations fall apart because someone trusted the wrong person. Within 2 hours, Mike found something. Ashley had attempted to access one of my private investment accounts. Not the joint one she could see, but an offshore crypto trust I'd set up for long-term military risk insurance. She didn't have the credentials, but the IP pinged from her laptop. She tried and failed twice. Then she tried again using a third-party interface, likely Chase Delmar's computer. That confirmed it. She wasn't just stealing, she was collaborating, at a That moment, my memory flashed to a photo she'd posted on Instagram 2 months ago. A yoga retreat in Bali, her posing beside a tan, muscle-shirted guy with 2 white teeth and a smirk that read, "I talk more than I think." His name? Chase Delmar. He ran a wellness company that had been pushing flashy retreats, financial coaching for influencers, and, according to Mike, was drowning in debt. What Ashley didn't know was that I had already anticipated this kind of betrayal years earlier. I knew that if someone ever used love as a weapon, the battlefield wouldn't be physical. It would be legal, digital, and financial. And so I built tools not to fight, but to disable. Quietly, surgically. I sent Chase's name to my legal team with one request: trace every transaction connected to Ashley over the last 24 months, especially business transfers, especially retreat funding. Then I contacted the storage facility Ashley mentioned in her message. She had moved my belongings there like it was nothing. I visited it the day I returned stateside, alone and armed, with quiet resolve. 2 boxes waited for me: my uniforms, a few books, a pair of boots. But missing were the irreplaceable things: my father's war medals, my mother's wedding locket, the watch I wore on every overseas tour. Gone. I sat in the car staring at those boxes and realized something hardened inside me, not out of hatred but clarity. This wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a violation of identity, of memory, of dignity. Ashley had reduced 16 years of partnership to a tactical strike. But unlike her, I wasn't impulsive. I didn't need revenge. I needed resolution. Tactical, thorough, undeniable. Before the sun went down, I drafted a formal complaint to the financial crimes unit of our bank, attaching everything: screenshots of the transfer, history of hidden withdrawals, and Ashley's recent fraudulent co-signatures. Then, I copied my lawyer. By midnight, the first lockout notices had been issued. Ashley had no idea what I was capable of, not as a husband, but as a soldier trained to adapt and strike only when it mattered most. The game had changed, and she'd already made her final move. 2 days after arriving back in Texas, I stood outside the glass doors of what was once the proud face of Ashley's empire, Solara Wellness Collective. Sleek branding, minimalist decor, bamboo fountains, and a boutique full of overpriced supplements and yoga mats. On the sidewalk, a group of clients filtered in and out, unaware that their empowered founder had just triggered a financial time bomb. Inside, Chase Delmar was holding court, shirt stretched over bulked muscles, aviators hanging from his collar, laughter just a little too loud. He was the kind of man who always made you feel like he was auditioning for something. I didn't enter. I observed, because there was still more I needed to know. Back at my temporary apartment, Mike had finished tracing the rabbit hole. The findings? Worse than I imagined. Ashley hadn't just stolen $132,000 in a single transfer. Over the past year and a half, she had been quietly siphoning smaller amounts, $2,000 here, $30,500 there, from our joint accounts into a private business fund labeled Future Growth Initiative. The beneficiary, an LLC registered under Chase's name. The total misappropriated amount was just over $79,000, all funneled under studio expansion, cleverly filed under categories I had authorized long ago. But there was something else. A document buried in the loan archive files, a scanned contract for a $200,000 small business loan, used to secure the lease and renovations for a new holistic retreat center in Sedona. Ashley's signature was there, bold and looping. But just beneath hers, in a different pen and forged with near-perfect precision, was mine. She had faked my signature. She had used my name, my military credibility, and our shared marital status to secure financing at premium rates, convincing Chase and the bank that I was backing the whole operation. Mike was furious. This isn't just shady. It's criminal. She weaponized your military status, Dan. He was right. Using a veteran service record to legitimize financial fraud isn't just unethical, It violates several federal statutes, and Ashley had done it with the same casual detachment she used to light candles before meditation. I dug deeper into the numbers. The entire operation was a house of cards. The Sedona retreat hadn't broken even in the first quarter. Chase had maxed out 3 business credit cards and secured a vehicle lease, an electric SUV with Ashley as co-signer. Even worse, a promotional event was underway next week with clients expecting high-end amenities, a catered organic experience, and keynote talks by influencers. But the supplier invoices hadn't been paid. A collapse was imminent. It dawned on me that Ashley didn't just betray me emotionally. She was now tangled in something that could ruin lives beyond our own. She wasn't alone in her recklessness. She had a partner now, one whose name was on every failing document, every overdue balance. And yet, their social media told a different story. Sunset yoga poses, champagne brunches, motivational slogans, like abundance is a mindset. But abundance built on stolen foundations always collapses. I called my attorney, Mara Alvarez, and gave her a full briefing. "This is beyond a divorce," she said after reading through the files.
"This is identity theft, VA benefits misuse, wire fraud, possibly racketeering." "What's our move?" I asked. "We request an emergency freeze on all marital assets. Submit evidence of fraud. File for divorce with financial misconduct."
As the primary cause, and, if you want, we can notify the DA. "I want every legal option ready," I said. "But I'm not out for blood. I just want my name cleared and what's mine returned." Mara paused. "You're being more generous than most would." "It's not generosity. It's strategy. Let the facts bury her. I don't need to." But I wasn't done yet. I returned to Solara that afternoon, walked past the reception desk and left a sealed envelope at the front counter. Inside was a copy of the loan document, side-by-side overlays of her forged signature and my actual one, and a note. "You're free to pursue the life you want, but not on my name. See you in court." That night, as the sun fell behind the rooftops of Austin, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You need to stop digging. This could get ugly. Ashley deserves peace, not war." Chase had just made his first mistake, he thought. He was dealing with a jealous ex-husband. What he didn't realize, what Ashley had never truly understood, was that I was trained for long campaigns, for silence, for strategy, for dismantling systems from within until they collapsed on their own arrogance. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about restoring order, and they were about to learn what that actually meant. 3 days later, I stood face to face with Chase Delmar in his own kingdom, a newly opened wellness retreat just outside Sedona, tucked into the red rock cliffs, like a promise of inner peace. The parking lot was full of Teslas and Range Rovers. The banners outside read, "Awaken the warrior within." The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't come unannounced. I scheduled an appointment under a pseudonym through his assistant, posing as a potential investor curious about partnerships with veteran organizations. Chase greeted me in the reception area, all charm and polished teeth. "You must be Ruben. Pleasure to meet you." I removed my sunglasses. "Not quite. My name is Major Daniel Reece. I believe we have some unfinished business." The second he registered my name, I saw it. The flicker of panic, the quick dart of his eyes toward the hallway behind him, and then the practiced smile. Ashley's husband. Or ex-husband, I suppose. "Soon to be," I said evenly. "That depends on how today goes." He guided me into a glass-walled office overlooking a meditation garden. Peaceful on the outside, fragile on the inside. I handed him a plain manila folder and took a seat across from him. He opened it and began to read. First the forged loan documents, then the co-signed leases, the VA benefits tied to marital status, Ashley's private bank transfers, a timeline, transaction logs, all cross-referenced and verified. He didn't speak until he reached the bottom of the stack. "These are legitimate business decisions," he said, voice defensive but quieter now. "Ashley told me everything was above board." "She forged my signature," I replied calmly. She used my military identity to boost your credibility. She violated multiple federal laws, and unless you want to be caught in the fallout, you need to understand something. I don't want your money. I want the truth exposed." He swallowed hard, shifting in his chair. "What are you planning to do?" "I've already done it. The accounts are frozen. The banks have been notified. My legal team has filed for divorce citing financial misconduct. The DA is reviewing the forged documents. You'll likely be subpoenaed. But I wanted to offer you a courtesy meeting to see what you had to say before it all becomes public record." "You think I knew?" he snapped. "I believed her. She told me you were gone, emotionally checked out. She said you were loaded. Military retirement, overseas pay, investments. She said you didn't care." I leaned forward. "And that's your mistake. You believed someone who builds their life on image and detachment. But this isn't Instagram. This is federal." He went quiet. Then, after a long pause, he said, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing, except this. When the investigators ask, tell the truth. Don't protect her. Don't invent stories. And return what was mine." He nodded slowly. "And one more thing," I said as I stood to leave. "When she left, Ashley took some items that don't belong to her. My father's military watch. Medals, family heirlooms, things money can't replace." Chase hesitated. "She said they were keepsakes. They're not. They're mine. And if they're not returned, I'll file an additional criminal complaint." He promised to see what he could do. 2 days later, a black courier vehicle pulled up to my apartment complex. Inside a sealed box were the missing medals, the old watch still ticking, and a handwritten note, unsigned, that read simply, "This is all I could find." It wasn't an apology. It was a signal. The game was shifting. That same afternoon, my attorney Mara confirmed that the emergency asset protection had been granted. Every shared account was frozen. The business loan was flagged for fraud. Ashley's access to any marital or military-tied resources was blocked pending court resolution. Then came the kicker. Ashley attempted to open a new line of credit under the marital property address using forged income statements. Denied, flagged, reported. The next morning, she called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Her voice was tight, almost shaking. "What have you done, Daniel? The bank called. Chase's loans are being recalled. The lease is void. They're repossessing the studio equipment tomorrow." "That's unfortunate," I said evenly. "You're doing this to punish me," she snapped. "You're destroying him just to get back at me." "No," I replied. "I'm simply protecting myself from fraud. You signed documents in my name. You leveraged my identity for your gain. That's not punishment. It's accountability." There was silence. Then the shift. Her tone softened, familiar, the same voice she used when asking for things over wine at home. "We can fix this. Come back. Let's talk. You don't have to go through with this. We were good together once." I let the silence stretch, then said, "That man died the day you turned me into a stepping stone." And I hung up. I didn't block her. Some part of me wanted her to watch it unfold. Because I wasn't chasing revenge, was reestablishing truth. And in this battle, silence would hit harder than any words ever could. 3 days after that call, I sat across from my attorney, Mara Alvarez, in her downtown Austin office. The windows overlooked the courthouse plaza, clean lines, stone walls, the quiet hum of due process in motion. She slid a folder across the table toward me, her expression controlled but edged with satisfaction. "We got it," she said. "The bank concluded their internal investigation. They verified your signature was forged on the $200,000 business loan. They've frozen Ashley's related accounts and formally referred the case to the district attorney." I opened the file. Clean, brutal documentation. Side-by-side comparisons of my real signature with the forgery. Email timestamps showing Ashley's submission of documents at times when I was logged in on secure military servers halfway around. The world. A perfect paper trail. She hadn't just crossed a line. She'd walked into a minefield. And Chase? I asked. They'll interview him as a cooperating witness. Based on your recording, it's clear he was misled, though he'll likely face scrutiny for failing due diligence. I nodded. I didn't need him punished, I needed him neutralized. Mara leaned back in her chair. We're filing your divorce petition this afternoon. Grounds: marital misconduct and financial fraud. You'll retain sole ownership of protected assets. No alimony. She'll be liable for debts incurred in your name. And her studio? Up to the court, but given it was funded partially through those misappropriated funds, we may request liquidation. I exhaled slowly, not out of relief, but because the operation was unfolding exactly as designed. I had trained for complex missions with dozens of moving parts. This was no different. The timeline, the documentation, the expert witnesses, it had all been locked and loaded for years. Still, something inside me felt heavier than victory. Not regret, not sorrow. Just the quiet realization that when you expose betrayal, what's left is a kind of silence that echoes louder than war. That afternoon, Ashley's lawyer made contact. Not a legal defense, just noise. An aggressive letter demanding I cease any public statements and provide full disclosure of all personal and business holdings, or face allegations of professional misconduct. Mara snorted as she read it. A bluff. I shrugged. Let her waste money on bluffs. That night, my phone lit up again. Not Ashley. Not Chase. Mutual friends. Text after text. Why are you doing this to her? She says you're freezing her out just to get even. We thought you were the calm one. No one asked where she'd been for the past month. No one asked about the money she stole. Or the life she built behind my back using my name. People rarely want the full truth when a curated version is easier to digest. I didn't respond. I just turned the phone over and poured myself a bourbon. But the silence didn't last. 2 days later, Ashley herself showed up at my attorney's office, unannounced, flanked by her lawyer. Court-mandated mediation was scheduled for the following week, but she wanted a meeting now. She needed leverage. Mara buzzed me from the front desk. They're here. She looks, nervous. I'm on my way. Ashley stood in the lobby wearing a tailored blazer over workout leggings, trying to look composed. But the bags under her, eyes, the too carefully painted smile, and the trembling hand around her soy latte told a different story. Her lawyer looked young, overconfident. He reminded me of a second lieutenant trying to bark orders on his first deployment. We sat. Her lawyer started with bluster. Our client is prepared to be generous in the division of assets, provided certain conditions are met. Mara cut him off. That's lovely, because there's been a development. She placed a document on the table. A single sheet. The final result of the bank's fraud investigation. Ashley's lawyer skimmed it. His expression changed immediately. We'll need time to review this. Of course, Mara said calmly, but you should know the bank has already contacted the district attorney. This meeting is a courtesy. Ashley's eyes darted to mine. Criminal charges? Daniel, you can't be serious. I didn't press charges, I replied. The bank did. That's what happens when you commit fraud with someone else's name. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously. She shook her head. Mara continued. If Ms. Walker is willing to sign our proposed settlement today, Mr. Reece is prepared to provide a formal statement to the bank that may help mitigate those charges. He will also decline to press separate charges for identity theft or the unlawful transfer of joint marital funds. Ashley stared at the document. Her hands didn't move. You expected me to fall apart, I said softly. To fight ugly. But I didn't. I just exposed what was already there. She said nothing. The terms were simple. She would keep her business but no alimony, no access to protected assets. She would assume all debts in her name or co-signed with Chase. Her lawyer argued, whined, threatened. But by the end of the hour, she signed. As we packed to leave, Ashley caught my arm. Her voice was low. "I never thought you'd fight back like this. You always just went along with everything." I looked her in the eye. "That was a choice, just like this was yours." And I walked out, without looking back. A month after the settlement, I moved into a modest craftsman house on the outskirts of Wimberley, Texas, far from the sterile condo Ashley once insisted we needed to match our brand. My new place didn't have quartz countertops or ambient lighting. What it had were creaky floorboards, a fireplace that smoked slightly when the wind turned, and a backyard wide enough to build something with my own hands. It felt right. The first morning there, I brewed coffee and sat on the back porch in silence. No court filings, no email chains, no calls from attorneys or banks. Just birds, the rustle of leaves, and the sound of a life slowly reassembling itself. I had lived so long with a sense of waiting for deployments, waiting for peace, waiting for her to come back from another business retreat and pretend like everything was fine. But now, for the first time in over a decade, I wasn't waiting. I was choosing, and that made all the difference. Word got around. Friends, real ones, started to reach out. Some had quietly suspected Ashley's double life but stayed silent, not wanting to interfere. Others admitted they were blindsided. I wasn't angry with them. Betrayal is rarely just personal. It warps the circles around you, leaving people unsure of what they saw or what they should have said. I heard from a former Army buddy who'd gone through something similar. His wife had drained their kids. College funds for a secret real estate deal with a man she met in a meditation group. His call was short but solid. "You did it right," he said. "Clean, clear, no scorched earth, but she'll never forget how you handled it." That stayed with me. A few weeks later, I visited the family cabin up north, just outside Grand Marais, Minnesota. My dad and I used to fish there before he passed. I hadn't been back since his funeral. The place needed work, roof tiles loose, the dock weather-worn, but I welcomed the labor. Manual tasks have a way of restoring clarity. Chop wood, fix the hinge, sand the table, each action a quiet reclaiming of self. While organizing the attic, I found an old letter my dad had written me during my first deployment. I'd never opened it. Maybe I wasn't ready back then, but now I unfolded the yellowed paper and read, "Son, remember this. Strength isn't how loud you are when you win. It's how calm you stay when you've been wronged and still refuse to lower your standards. Keep your dignity. That's your legacy." I folded the letter and placed it in my chest pocket. The timing was perfect. Back in Wimberley, life continued. I took up woodworking again, built my own dining table, cooked simple meals, joined a local veterans community that met weekly for coffee and conversation. No one asked about the case. No one needed to. They knew. That unspoken understanding among soldiers, that you've been through something that didn't make you bitter, just quieter. Ashley, from what I gathered, had moved to Arizona. She'd rebranded her wellness business into something called Risewell Healing Through Disruption. Her Instagram showed mountain views, motivational quotes, and pictures of her posing barefoot on boulders. Not a single mention of Chase. He apparently had moved to Florida after his retreat center was bought out by a larger chain. Neither of them posted about what happened. They rarely do. People don't advertise the wreckage, only the rebirth. But I wasn't watching them anymore. That chapter was closed. One evening, Mike stopped by with a six-pack and a crooked grin. "You know," he said as we sat on the porch watching the sun drop behind the trees, "you could have taken her for everything. Bankrupt her, filed charges, wipe her clean." I nodded. "Yeah, but what would have been the point? She's no longer my problem." He raised a bottle. "To battles won the right way." We drank in silence, the kind of silence you earn, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you refused to become like the ones who tried to ruin you, and in that quiet I found what I'd lost for years: peace. When betrayal strikes from the person you trusted most, it often feels like your entire identity collapses with it. But what this story shows, what Daniel Reece proves, is that calm, preparation, and quiet dignity can defeat even the most calculated deception. He didn't shout. He didn't retaliate emotionally. He exposed the truth with precision and rebuilt his life on stronger ground. Many men, especially veterans and those who've devoted their lives to service, carry silent burdens. They give everything: loyalty, protection, sacrifice, while expecting honesty in return. But relationships can become battlegrounds, and sometimes the greatest victories are not public, but internal. Let this story be a reminder. Your strength lies not in how loud you react, but in how wisely you respond. And true power is in reclaiming your life without losing yourself in the process. Tell me, have you ever experienced betrayal that forced you to rebuild from the ground up? Drop your story below. Your words might be the guide someone else needs today. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded. You don't need revenge to win. You just need clarity, courage, and quiet justice.